Yeah, see, I can understand this because one of my guilty pleasures is tow truck videos on YouTube.
Really? That's one of your guilty pleasures?
It's one of my guilty pleasures because I like to see justice. I like to see those road rage, instant karma videos where somebody like flips somebody off and then they swerve out and crash.
All right.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love and growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out our race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, 2 of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. You can find all the information or past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, for all those who absolutely crave all of our Shat, including video Shat, you can follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel. Just go to shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where you can catch both past and live content every week. And we're also pushing that to YouTube in case you missed the live episodes. So make sure you check out our YouTube channel. Just search for Shat the Movies, Shat on TV, things like that. And also, we talked about this last week. If you have any thoughts on any of our past movie reviews, or you want to defend a Shat score, you think that we were too lenient or we were too harsh on a movie, you can send in your thoughts to hosts at shatthemovies.com or send us a voicemail at 914-719-SHAT and just put Dropbox in the title. That being said, Big D, what movie are we doing this episode?
So this week, we got a commission from Otto, and it's one of those rare movies that when it came in, I had a little memory of it, but I had no idea really what it was about. I even said last week that I thought it was, they made a remake recently about harvesting organs. So that shows you how much I knew. But it was about a small film back from 1984. A lot of people love it, including Scott O. And it is the 1984 subculture punk classic, Repo Man.
Yeah, and anytime someone commissions a movie here at Shat the Movies, which, by the way, Big D, we are into January of next year for commissions. They keep rolling in.
It's fantastic. It's flattering. It helps us keep going. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, they're commissioned. They don't need it. That's not true. Every month, the bills continue to climb. Shit doesn't get cheaper.
No.
So if you got a birthday coming up next year, maybe Valentine's Day around that time, you just make a Valentine's commission. And that way, just the time goes by. And then one day, poof, your present arrives into your podcast feed.
Yeah, you can go to shatthemovies.com, click the support link, and it'll show you all the instructions if you want to commission a movie here at Shat the Movies. But anytime someone does, and then we ask them to either call in or write in with their memories of this movie, explaining why they may have commissioned it. And this comes from Scott. Oh, no. Again, Scott was very generous in his email. So I had to truncate it a little bit to get the juicy parts just for time here. But he writes in, as I was working my way through the show's back library, I kept waiting for Repo Man to come up in an episode, but it never did. And when I reached the end of the show's back catalog and realized that this film was not yet chosen, I decided, what the hell? I'll see if I could reach out to have it reviewed by you guys. Now, much like the stated premise of your show, I've really enjoyed rewatching films from my youth, which I haven't seen for years, and seeing if my opinion of them has changed. I was born, like Big D, in the early 70s, and Repo Man was released in 1984. However, it wasn't until 1985, when I was 14 years old, that I first saw the It. My dad had purchased a jailbroken cable box from one of the neighbors down the street so we could watch all the movie channels. My friends and I spent many weekend nights staying up all hours of the evening watching movies on Skinamax, Showtime, and HBO. And one Friday night, me and my best 2 friends that were sleeping over watched it in my living room in Rochester, Michigan. As a middle-class suburban punks that we all loved it. I had to look to see when it was playing again so I could set the VCR to tape it, and we must have watched it 100 times that night. The unstilted relationship between Bud and Otto from their first meeting had us on the floor. They should have never been in the same street, but the conversation was natural. Now, truth be told, the soundtrack had a lot to do with the impact that this movie had on me. And at the time in my young life, I had just started to play guitar, and that soundtrack really introduced me to music that I had not only really connected with, but music that I could actually play too. And recently I watched it with my wife. She had never seen it before, but I wanted to see her reaction and see if the greatness could still hold up. She said that it definitely feels like an 80s movie, but in a good way. She also said that the premise was completely absurd, but somehow totally relatable, and that Emilio Estevez might actually be an underrated actor, and that Harry Dean Anderson should have won an award for his performance. It's pretty hard for me to argue with her assessment of the movie. It even held my 13-year-old stepson's attention for a minute. I'll add my own personal wipe score at the end of my review here, but I actually own a bidet. I look forward to hearing your takes on the film, and we could go order some sushi and not pay. And thanks. This comes from Scott O. And he writes a little PS. He says, my wife likes your show too, but she says you talk about something making you need to masturbate in every show. Come on. Ha ha ha. So like, as I read this, I'm like, wait, do we really talk about masturbation or things that make us masturbate?
Well, last episode, you asked me in Kingpin what kind of attachment I would want, and I did say we would need a self-pleasure device. So,
right,
so maybe it does come up every time, and we don't understand.
we don't see it. Yeah.
But listen, if you don't think your husband Scott is thinking about it as well, you guys need to have a talk. But two things I want to address here. Okay, number one, your wife is a bit crazy. If she thinks that Emilio Estevez is underrated as an actor, what does she think of Charlie Sheen? Does she think I know he's in Platoon, but everything else has been pretty downhill from there.
No, Charlie Sheen was great in Hot Shots, which, by the way, is a travesty we haven't done yet.
And Platoon, I know I'm going to get mail on that.
And Major League.
But Scott said he liked this because when he was learning to play guitar, he could play the music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Roger doesn't play guitar, and I'm pretty sure that Roger could play these songs as well.
Listen, in punk music, the drummers are the real highlight of bands. I've never really been into punk music, but I think the drummers are the ones that are the superstars.
Is punk code for we really didn't want to practice? Is that what it means?
Oh, you just opened up the Dropbox, sir, to all our punk music fans. Well, Repo Man is a 1984 American science fiction black comedy film written and directed by Alex Cox. In his directorial debut, it stars Harry Dean Stanton and Emilio Estevez, as mentioned. Set in Los Angeles, the plot concerns a young punk rock enthusiast who is recruited by a car repossession agency and gets caught up in the pursuit of a mysterious Chevrolet Malibu that might be connected to extra-terrestrials. A satire of America under the Reagan administration, consumerism, and the atomic age, Repo Man was developed by Cox in partnership with his fellow film school graduates from UCLA, independent producers Jonathan Wax and Peter McCarthy. His inspiration from the film came from his own experiences working with his neighbor, repossession agent Mark Lewis. The soundtrack, as mentioned by Scott O, was headlined by a main theme composed and performed by Iggy Pop and is noted as a snapshot of early hardcore California punk. Cox wanted the music to underscore the life of Repo Man. Repo Man was released to audiences on March 2nd, 1984 and made just $3.7 million at the box office, although the budget was a paltry $1.5 million. So this actually made good money. And despite a troubled initial release due to Universal's skepticism towards the film's commercial viability, Repo Man received widespread acclaim, especially in that niche audience, and was deemed by critics to be one of the best films of 1984. It has since gained a cult following, particularly surrounding Cox's re-edited version of the film for television due to its deliberate inclusion of surreal overdubs to replace profanity. And a standalone sequel based on an unproduced screenplay by Cox, Waldo's Hawaiian Holiday, was published as a graphic novel in 2008, while a spiritual successor, Repo Chick, was released in 2009. Now, before we dive into the review and break down this movie for you, we always ask the question, where were you? What are your memories of this movie? We'll start with you, Big D.
So as you go back and you explain the history of the challenges this movie found getting out into the theaters, it makes sense why I really didn't know it. My only memory of it was from working in Blockbuster and the box. And the artwork was cool. I mean, you see it and you're like, wow, okay. There's this bunch of people standing behind a car. Some have masks on. They all have weapons. You have Emilio Estevez looking as like hardcore as he possibly can. And I was thinking this was going to be along the lines of the classic The Warriors, because it looked like it was going to be maybe some gritty, real world story about the battle of repo men and criminals. And it was very different.
See, you had the advantage of working at Blockbuster. And although I frequented my local video store every weekend, I never saw, never heard, never knew this movie ever existed. And the box art you mentioned looks like a hardcore Emilio Estevez. It doesn't even look like Emilio Estevez. It looks like Emilio Estevez if you had that weird Instagram filter on that makes your features look completely smooth. But I could tell where you could get a Warriors sense out. Like, Repo Man, come out and play.
Come get the car. No, you gotta think though. Like, this was 1983.
Right.
There was no filter. There was no computerized manipulated images. This was probably some dude taking a picture and then drawing on top of it and cutting pictures out. So, I mean, it was what they could do. It looks interesting. At least I thought about watching it. I never did.
Did you ever? You never caught it on TV. You never saw like the made for TV.
Way.
All right.
No.
Well, with that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
Meet Otto. He's a clean-cut kid in a dirty business. He repossesses cars. He's a repo man.
You gonna give me my car back, or do I gotta go to your house and shove your dog's head down the toilet?
His mission is to repossess a 64 Chevy, but hidden within its trunk.
What you got in the trunk?
You don't want to look in there.
Is the most important discovery in the history of our planet. Repo Man. It's a mystery.
Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say like plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue. No explanation.
It's a comedy.
What are you doing? Don't do that!
It's a chase. It's the forces of law.
Marlene, I'm on my coffee break.
Against the representatives of discontented youth. Against the finest minds in government.
I had a lobotomy in the end.
Lobotomy? Isn't that for loonies?
Not at all.
And they're all in pursuit of a 64 Chevy Malibu from who knows where.
Blam! Eyes melt, skin explodes, everybody dead.
Repo Man. The story of the ultimate repossession. Repo Man. Not just a job, it's an adventure.
In the Mojave Desert, a policeman pulls over a 1964 Chevrolet Malibu driven by J. Frank Parnell. The policeman opens the trunk, sees a blinding flash of white light, and is instantly vaporized, leaving only his boots behind. Meanwhile, in LA, a young punk rocker, Otto Maddox, is fired from his job as a supermarket stock clerk, and his girlfriend cheats on him with his best friend. Depressed and broke, Otto is wandering the streets when a man named Bud drives up and offers him $25 to drive a car out of the neighborhood. He initially refuses to join Bud as a repo man, but after he learns that his parents have donated money that they promised him as a reward for graduating from high school to a crooked televangelist, he decides to take the repo job.
So I understand that the underlying motif of this movie, of the Repo Man, is that things are not always what they seem. So I understand that saying this. But the character of Otto is a bit confusing. It starts off, and I was led to believe that Otto was this fucking tough guy. He's at work. He fucking throws Kevin, who's supposed to be his friend, into this pile of sliced canned peaches. He tells the boss and the security guard to fuck off. He gets fired. We see him at some small, like, back alley, mosh pit with like 20 other dudes. He's slam dancing to coup d'etat. He's singing, "Give me a bomb, a Molotov, give me a coup d'etat, kill them all." So I'm like, shit, this dude's badass. He's got his girl in bed and he's folding his pants. He's like, yeah, now you do it. I'm like, shit, he is hardcore. And then Otto is the complete opposite of that.
No, yeah, Emilio Estevez, first of all, miscast in this movie. He's way too pretty to be punk. He's got like that large earring that just seems out of place. He looks like he belongs more on a ship with Jack Sparrow than he does at a punk scene. He's not even dressed like the other punks.
No. Do you remember another movie we did, which is in that subculture, counterculture, kid kind of trying to find his own way, Gleaming the Cube?
Sure.
in Gleaming the Cube, Christian Slater looked like he could have been a skater. He looked like a bit of a dirtbag. And then Christian Slater cleans up. He gets his hair cut. He gets dressed at the Gap.
Yeah.
That Gap version of Christian Slater is what Otto looks like from day one.
Right. And he's going to these punk parties. Like, how is he not getting beat up? Of course, his best friend, who's supposedly a punk, is going to be banging his girlfriend when he goes to get a beer. Like, how long does it take for you to get out of your bed, throw on some tighty whities, go get a beer from the refrigerator? What is that, like 60 seconds? He comes back and his friend is banging his girlfriend.
He had to have been in the closet, or he had to have been under the bed, because they're almost both completely naked, and it looks like he's inside her. So it looks like that dude had to be fluffed and ready, and just like a pit crew from a NASCAR event. You know, Otto walks out to go down the stairs and he's out. That's the only way that could have worked.
Has that ever happened to you? Has any of your friends like hooked up with one of your girlfriends, or have you ever been a dirtbag and done something like that? Like you go, maybe you get a refreshment and you come back and like one of your friends is hooking up with the girl that you were hooking up with?
No, I did though when I was living with my friend Jeff years ago when I got out of the Army. I used to say, hey, I'm going to go bring a girl into my closet, because I had a long walk-in closet and I had a giant banner that everybody, like people would hang out, they'd come sign it. So he knew that was code for he's going to go hook up. And I said in a minute to another guy, tell Jeff that I'm taking his sister into the closet. So we went into the closet just as a joke to have her sign it. And he comes fucking tearing in, busts the door open. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, we're just signing the banner. So that was the closest I came.
Well, has anyone ever pulled you aside as you're walking down the street and offered you money or some sort of incredible deal for goods?
Again, he's supposed to be a hardcore punk rocker.
Right.
You know, I'm against the establishment. I'm against the man. This dude's wife is not giving birth. You can spot the con. He has no street smarts. And again, maybe that's, you know, things are not what they seem. But I would not do that deal. He should not do that deal. Nothing good's going to come from that. But the 80s were more an innocent time. Like as this movie's going on and we see the highway motorcycle cop pulls over the car, in my 2020 view, I'm like, oh, fuck, he's going to get shot. That cop is going to get shot. And when he doesn't, I was like, oh, okay. I realized how different the times were.
Well, I'm always excited for a movie that starts with Iggy Pop punk music and stars an actor named Dick Rude, who coincidentally has collaborated with Cox on many other projects. And it was the success of the Repo Man project, as Scott O points out, that gave this film its initial sparks of commercial life. Alex Cox says on the commentary that he believes the success of the soundtrack was key toward the renewed interest in the film's release, and that it was instrumental to the film's emergence as a object of cult affection. And you can see this because this movie exists in like it's very similar to the way that Blade Runner is associated with like goth, and like if you go to like industrial clubs, you see that playing on the walls. There are punk rock bars and dive bars that will have Repo Man nights.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see it in the way that they're satiring the different products and consumerism. Like you can tell that this is almost like a student movie.
It's trying to be a takedown of the suburban life, you know, the people with their jobs, normies, you know, I hate normal people. They were trying to really act like they were something different. We're going to be trendy. You know, we're not like the establishment. And I thought when we started to see those generic products, I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe they are making some kind of a statement about consumerism. No, it really wasn't. You said maybe they didn't know it was going to be a comedy. I don't think they knew what this was going to be until they got into it. And for example, that statement that I thought they were making, this anti-consumerism stance on product placement, that's not true. The filmmakers, when they were making Repo Man, they needed corporate sponsors. So they went to different products. And the only one who said yes was a grocery store chain, Ralph's, and the Car Freshener Corporation. Everybody else said no. So that's why when you see that he walks into his house and he says, I'm going to get some food. He gets a can and it says food. When he has a beer, it says beer. This wasn't some big statement about consumerism. It just kind of was forced to, and they just leaned into it.
And that's what I thought. But maybe you're right. Maybe they did lean into this and they were like, well, this is about punk music. So yeah, you're right. We're going to go like, this is anti-consumerism, because they're kind of doing the same thing with the parents too, with them being kind of zombies on the couch.
Well, you know, like Gleaming the Cube. Parents don't understand, man. You don't know what it's like to gleam the cube. And he comes home, and I love this part. This was one of the best statements. I think the movie has a great take on on religion and how people buy into it and questioning the church and what its motivation is. The parents are sitting on the couch just watching like zombies, the televangelist, and the preacher, he's owning it. Yes, I want your money. God said, send me your money. And he asked for his college fund, and Dad's like, oh, no, we sent all that away. You're now on the honor roll of the Chariots of Fire. You're on there with us, Otto. Don't worry, it was a gift. It was a joint family. We're sending Bibles to El Salvador. I think this movie has a lot of great, witty, funny takes on organized religion.
Yeah, you can definitely tell they were trying to make a statement there. But again, it didn't feel like it hit for me because Otto's he's such an asshole. He's like, hey, so Dad, I was thinking maybe I go back to high school because you promised me that you'd give me money if I finish school. But could I get that now? I really want to go to Europe. What parent is going to be like, yeah, we're going to give you $1,500. And then I've never known hippie, because they're smoking a joint too. They're kind of like hippie parents, kind of spaced out. I've never known hippie parents to also fall into a televangelist cult.
I would smoke a lot of pot too if Otto was my kid.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why Otto the way that it is.
Yeah.
Well, after repossessing a flashy red Cadillac, Otto sees a girl named Leila running down the street. He gives her a ride to her workplace, the United Fruitcake Outlet. And on the way, Leila shows Otto pictures of aliens that she says are in the trunk of a Chevrolet Malibu. She claims that they are dangerous because of the radiation they emit. And meanwhile, Helping Hands is offered a $20,000 bounty for the Malibu. And most assume that the car is drug related because the bounty is so far above the actual value of the car.
So the movie is called Repo Man. I was expecting them to do quite a bit of repoing. I thought this was going to be, I was like, shit, okay. I have seen enough live bad reality, Repo Man shows.
Sure.
And Bud starts out, I'm like, okay, he's got a creed. He's got the repo creed. I live by it. We all live by it. No confrontation. I'm like, okay, I don't know that from the TV shows. Don't damage the cars. Okay, they start damaging the cars. And then they start finding Christmas gifts. They're throwing them out the window, which turns out to be money. They're breaking every repo rule. These guys, yes, they're trying to subvert what we think of repo men, but they're shitty repo men. What repo man doesn't have a tow truck? What repo man doesn't have equipment to try to repo the car? These guys seem to have the keys and they just show up. Why do they keep calling themselves car thieves? They have the keys.
Obviously, the repo game has evolved, obviously, since this time. Yes. Because it seems like it's a crazy time. But you have to imagine, Alex Cox probably went through similar experiences. You write what you know, right?
Yeah, see, I can understand this because one of my guilty pleasures is tow truck videos on YouTube.
Really? That's one of your guilty pleasures?
It's one of my guilty pleasures because I like to see justice. I like to see those road rage, instant karma videos where somebody flips somebody off and then they swerve out and crash. Instant karma.
Yeah.
So I can understand the enjoyment of watching this. Sitting in the car, I think it'd be fun, but YouTube is enough for me.
Fuck that. In college, in Gainesville, the tow truck game is just like that. They're like sharks. They're constantly looking for college kids who park their car and they're immediately towing. And it's a racket. And listen, I want to be like Otto. I want to go in there. I want them to give me a beer and I want to take that beer and I want to pour it on their floor. I want to be like, why would I ever join something like you guys are just, you guys are the worst. But I got to give it to Helping Hands. They really have a pretty strong onboarding program here. I wish that some of my previous jobs had the same type of training programs that Helping Hands did. He's really Otto's getting the full treatment of ride-alongs. There's a whole Grease Lightning drag race with Bud along the LA River, and Light is teaching him how to shoot blanks and then providing him books to expand his horizons. I think it's called Diuretics, the Science of Matter over Mind. If I was a disillusioned punk in my youth and I was looking for my first job, this would be perfect.
You forgot about the burn barrel of wisdom.
By Miller?
Yeah, where Miller is telling him all about aliens and they're burning things. And it was, their onboarding it's on point. I mean, he gets his ass kicked. He gets shot at.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to teach him how to use a Slim Jim.
No.
That might have helped.
Well, I kind of felt bad. There's one scene, it has a little bit of racial overtone, and I don't know if this was intended, but he's over there. He's dressed like a detective, I guess, because that's what Otto or Bud tells him to do. Mm-hmm. And he goes in there and he's talking to this nice, sweet old black lady. And he's like, listen, if you could just send in some money, I don't want to have to do this. And then all of a sudden, like her grandchildren or her children show up and they look like nice young men that are in a jazz band. Like they don't look intimidating at all. And you see him like, oh, I'm going to get jumped here or whatnot. And then he leaves. Why does he repossess the car? He just made this nice arrangement with this nice black lady who's like, hey, I just need some money so I can get my car.
Maybe this is like a double cross or a double switch or I don't know what it is, because it starts off where he passes this group on their mopeds. And I'm like, oh shit, Gene would love this. They're like their little Vespas and like zzz, going around the road. So I'm like, oh, look at these fucking dudes.
Yeah.
Why did he go in the house to even talk to this woman?
I don't know.
Just go repo a car. You're a repo man. You don't notice that it's up on jack stands? So then he comes in and he's afraid because they're a jazz band. And also it's bullshit because no jazz musician is going to pick up his guitar and use that as a weapon.
None.
No chance.
No
chance.
Or you would think that also maybe Light, who seems to be a ladies' man, like he would be telling him the right things to do when he's with women, because Otto, when he's with Leila, and we've talked about this before, we talked about negging and mystery and the pickup artist. He is straight up early 80s negging her, and she's eating it up. After she's like, oh, I would never go out with you. You're horrible. You're the worst. But as soon as he says, girls pay to go out with me, she relents. And then like there's that speed up like Benny Hill film where they just like right into the backseat of the car and then they're like banging. This wouldn't be so bad as if I knew the age of Leila. Like I get that they're supposed to be like teenagers, but at some parts Leila looks and acts like a 14-year-old, and then she looks older. Like, how old is Leila in all this?
Well, we have Otto who's pretending to be 21, but later when we see him get caught by the agency or whatever, he is actually 18. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking Leila, since she has a job, is probably around the same age, but I got the impression that she was abused, or maybe she has a medical issue because she's kind of not all there in her head. Just the way she runs, she kind of shuffles and she's kind of, when she goes in the back of the car and we see them having sex, I was like, oh shit, this has got to be a Kingpin type daydream,
right?
That we're going to see her slap. But no. So Otto is getting reinforcement that this is the way you get laid. You don't fold your pants on the bed and say you can do it now. You just tell girls, hey, I'm so good, they pay me for it, right? He goes to see her at work. They're just starting to hang out. He drops his pants. This is the United Fruitcake Outlet. What does he think's going to happen? The coworker walks in. He goes, well, I guess, you could have given me a blowjob. Oh, so he's getting conflicted messages. He doesn't really know what works.
And again, I don't know if it's trying to be a comedy. I don't know if it's trying to be a subversive message about the culture at the time, but I don't ever remember a time where these kind of words or actions would ever work. They've never worked for me. I've never even attempted to do them. I've never thought of attempting to do that. But maybe my game has been wrong all the time. I don't know. Right in. Well, Parnell arrives in LA driving the Malibu, but he's unable to meet his waiting UFO compatriots because of a team of government agents led by a woman with a metal hand. When Parnell pulls into a gas station, Helping Hands competitors, the Rodriguez brothers, take the Malibu. They stop for sodas because the car's trunk is so hot. And while they're out of the car, a trio of Otto's punk friends who are on a crime spree steal the Malibu. Now, these are your people, Big D, because the CIA agents are all blonde. They're all tall. You would fit right in with this group of men in black.
Yeah, I think that's part of the anti-government stance that these punk rockers are going to take. The G-men, they all look like clones. It looks like Children of the Corn, right? Isn't that the one with all the kids or
the Amish people? Yeah, the Amish.
Yeah, that's right. Where they all have the same little like white haircut, and these are guys of no substance. But I did like the scene where they finally catch them at the Helping Hands Acceptance Corporation in the offices. And Marlene gets him kind of distracted, and she picks up a chair, and the agent is like, not my face, not my face. And then she smashes him with the face. That shit I did like.
I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, are they supposed to be competent, or are they supposed to not be competent?
No,
and then are they associated with the people in white suits that are picking up these drunk winos? Are they all the same?
Yes, it's all the same. It's saying that the government has these secret agencies that we don't even know what they are, and they're out there doing the bidding. That they're cleaning up the mess because they don't know if these winos are dying because the radiation from the Malibu. But did you catch your idol in
Which
one of these?
I have a few idols.
Jimmy Buffett. He pulls off it. Yes, he has a cameo. He is one of the CIA agents. He's got like aviator glasses on, and he's photographing the dead body in the Malibu, the scientist. I can't believe you missed that.
I did miss it.
It's a quality cameo fitting of Jimmy Buffett's talents.
The best was Jimmy Buffett stealing the margarita from Margaritaville that was in Jurassic Park City Walk. That's the best cameo. But speaking of casting choices, did you know that Michael Nesmith, one of the monkeys, was one of the original producers and is the one that got the film deal at Universal for Alex Cox. He also is the one that recommended Tracy Walter, who plays Miller, and Miguel Sandoval, Archie the Punk, to Alex Cox, having worked with him on, get this, Big D, Time Rider, The Adventure of Lyle Swan, which Nesmith, as we mentioned, was the co-writer and producer of that movie. Also, the smoking boots left behind when the motorcycle cop is zapped. That's also a visual reference to your favorite movie, Time Rider, The Adventure of Lyle Swan.
You see, you guys poo-pooed my choice there. If you go back in time and we put all timelines of what we like about popular culture and movies, they will all come to one convergence. And that convergence is Time Rider. It's very important to the world we live today.
The 6 degrees of Lyle Swan. That's right. Well, how about you talked about Kevin, the nerd, his friend. That's like the OG Napoleon Dynamite, right? Like he's at the gas station after he got fired from the supermarket store, which why would he get fired as well? He's the one that got pushed into the peaches. He didn't do anything wrong, but he's working at the gas station. The Rodriguez brothers show up and he's like, "Hey, right back at you, babes." But the real question here is, why is everyone trying to look at the back of trunks of cars? Was this a thing in the 80s? I've never had, like, maybe I could believe a police officer on an outstretched road in the desert with, out of state license plates. But why would a gas station attendant ever want to check the trunk of a car?
Well, he was giving vacuuming services as a free, value add, like an add-on, an upcharge.
Gotcha.
So that was why he was like, "Hey, do you want me to vacuum your trunk?" And Kevin, I loved Kevin, man. Kevin was, like you said, the OG Napoleon Dynamite. And I think he got fired. He was just collateral damage. The boss was embarrassed. His armed security guard was embarrassed. So he said, "Get the fuck out of here too." And Kevin later on, when we see he's dead, I don't know how he died, but he's on a gurney. He's being carried into the morgue. They lift up the sheet and he's like, "Hey, Otto." So that I liked. I liked him.
Maybe it's because he got too close to the trunk. This is why I never check trunks of cars ever again.
I totally agree with you. But we get a scene in here, part of that onboarding process, you said, where they're trying to make Otto like acclimate him to the violent and stressful world of the Repo Man. And Miller makes a stunning comment that he says that John Wayne was a homosexual.
He doesn't say the word homosexual. He says the other word in the 80s that is no longer socially acceptable to say on a podcast.
I think it is a bundle of sticks or a single cigarette.
He says the F word. I think you can say the F word.
Well, it's a bundle of sticks. If you ever Google it.
Sure. Or if you're overseas, a cigarette.
That's what I said, one cigarette. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Miller goes on to tell a story about how he had once installed two-way mirrors into John Wayne's house in Brentwood. Ollie then replies, a lot of straight guys like to watch their buddies fuck. He says, "I do." And they all go, yeah, I do. So I want to know, have you ever, or do you enjoy watching your friends have sex?
I've never experienced it. The closest I came was when I lived in, you remember my roommate in Orlando. He was one of the best guys in the entire world. We're still friends to this day. I don't want to say his name for fear that this might ever get back to him, but he apparently had just he was Italian and he was
blessed. He was
very blessed when it came to that. And I used to hear him just going at it. And that's the closest. I never installed a two-way mirror or some cameras in to watch him. I would never that just seems a little skeevy to me, but I will be honest and say that I did listen a couple times, because our rooms were pretty close to each other. There was no escaping it.
Okay. So your friend, he seemed to be blessed in physical attributes,
Sure.
but also in technique. So
Yes.
I've heard stories. So you're telling me at no point during this vocal outburst of erotic joy did you ever did you see? We're talking about masturbation again. God,
We
damn it,
are. We
I'm
are.
telling you,
Again,
his
aren't
heart's
we?
warm.
It's
So
weird.
you never once said, "Oh, okay, let me see." I got a little tingle, and you never took care of yourself.
I would lie if I didn't say that it didn't, strike up something that I've tried to repress ever since.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, but have you ever been in a situation where you watched your friends?
Of course.
But your friends knew that you were watching. You never
No, I mean,
like you
I
weren't
was
like a voyeur.
in the room. I was in the room.
You were in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the room.
Yeah. I don't think that I would ever swing with anyone. Actually, you know what? I take this back. Gene and I have gone to Hash House Harrier events, and there's always like a boom boom room. And I've seen people do that, but like I've never like participated in it or anything like that. But like I wouldn't be opposed with a girlfriend, us do it in front of other people while they're doing it. Like that would be okay. That would be. I don't see anything wrong with that.
In my younger days, I enjoyed it. I thought it was empowering. I thought it was because you shock people. I told the story about New Orleans where I was having relations with a girl. And a group of people came back in and they thought we would be shamed and we kept going.
Sure.
And it became almost like an Eyes Wide Shut. People were like, oh, this is kind of a good idea. It was like we
started the party.
Accepted the idea. And before we knew it, there was a group activity.
Yeah.
It was very liberating and free.
You're like, now you understand the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
In the 70s. Well, after they visit a nightclub, Parnell appears and tricks the punks into opening the trunk, killing one of them and scaring the other two away. Later, he picks up Otto and drives aimlessly before collapsing and dying from radiation exposure. Otto takes the Malibu back to Helping Hand and leaves it in the lot. The car is stolen from the lot and a chase ensues. By this time, though, the car is glowing bright green.
Again, shitty Repo Man. This is the most sought after car in all of California. He's found it. He's finally gotten it. Right. What does he do? He parks it right in the middle of the yard with the license plate facing the street. Pull it into the garage, dude. Throw a cover over it. Come on.
Well, this is because he saw a handwritten sign on an 8x10 paper that said "Big Party at Miller's." See you there. Like now, if you were passing a repo lot and you saw a handwritten sign on a piece of 8x10 paper inviting you to a big party at Miller's with an address, would you check it out?
Man, this is before cell phones. There was no, Facebook invite. Right. If you saw a note that somebody took the time to say "big party at Miller's," fuck yeah, I'm going.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? Have you ever shown up at someone's party uninvited?
Oh, probably. I had to have when I was younger.
Yeah.
It's just at this point when you hit a certain age, your younger days when you were partying become a blur. So I don't know if some of these things I say I've done were in a TV show, a movie, or I actually did them, to be honest.
I was visiting. So I talked about the time that I was a camp counselor up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Well, later that year, my roommate and I, we went and visited one of the other counselors. He was going to the Virginia Tech University. And we were going to go out because it was around Halloween weekend and we were going to go downtown. Well, the bus never came. So we were all on mushrooms and really high. So we started walking around his these giant college apartment complexes. And we found these arrows drawn on the sidewalk. And so we start following them. And then again, this is kind of, cell phones were there, but we never used them because we were on limited data plans. And so we start walking to these arrows. We end up at this party, this house party at one of the apartments. And we take it over. They're playing Backstreet Boys. We do a whole dance number. Yeah. There's 6 or 7 of us. And then it turns out that this is a Christian party. There's no booze. There's no alcohol. They're just having fun on life. Yeah. And they were like, "Are you guys really high?" We were like, No. Yeah. We're not doing anything. But it was really creepy because then the rest of the night, every time we turned on the TV or a TV was playing, it was like a televangelist. So awesome. It was really creepy. It tripped us out because we were all on magic mushrooms. No, it was great.
They were high on the power of Jesus.
They were high on the power of Jesus. They had chariots of fire going to heaven for them, waiting them. They had already graduated. Again, I'm not a punk. We don't know many punks in our personal lives, but what is going on at this nightclub? Again, I don't know what this movie is trying to be. There's not a punk band playing. It's like a doo-wop band that's up on stage. Then the punks start kissing the hand of the CIA Man in Black woman. And then they're like, fuck this. Let's go do some crimes. Yeah, let's go get sushi and not pay for it. And then apparently his buddy dies. And he says, I know a life of crime has led me to this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this fate. And yet I blame society. Society made me what I am. And Otto's like, that's bullshit. You're just a white suburban punk like me. But says, yeah, but it still hurts. Like, again, at this point, are they just trying to finish the movie? Like, again, are they trying to make a message here? Is it trying to be a comedy? I don't know what's happening. The tone of this movie is all over the place.
See, the problem is, Rog, you're a normie. You know,
I guess
you
so.
can't understand it. Things are not always what they seem, man. Okay,
I guess so.
You don't get it, Raj.
I just don't understand going and kissing this woman's hand, this metal hand, and then saying, fuck this, let's go do some crimes.
But you don't have a question of why she has a metal hand? Come on, there's so many things. If you start questioning every little thing, and this will be a 7-hour podcast.
Well, eventually the Malibu reappears at the Helping Hand lot with Bud behind the wheel, but he ends up being shot. The various groups trying to acquire the car soon show up, government agents, the UFO scientists, and even the televangelists, and anyone who approaches it bursts into flames, even those in flame retardant suits. Only Miller, the eccentric mechanic at Helping Hands who explained earlier to Otto that aliens exist and can travel through time in their spaceships, is able to enter the car. He slides behind the wheel and beckons to Otto into the Malibu. After Otto settles into the passenger seat, the Malibu lifts straight up into the air and flies away, first through the city's skyline and later into space. End movie.
Okay, so now this is probably the part of the movie that most people remember.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I bet you that Scott was blown away by this concept that this could happen. Today, it's laughable, the special effects. I'm like, oh my God, that's so terrible. Until I found out how they actually did this. Technology was so limited that to get the Malibu to glow in that final scene, they found that traffic sign paint. It's super reflective. They use it on like the signs you see on the highway.
Sure.
But that shit is expensive. It's $600 a bucket. So covering that car in this reflective green paint cost them probably 4 or 5% of the entire budget for this movie just to get the car to look that way. So when we look back and say, does this hold up? Did CGI exist in this time? Yes, it did. Did they have access to it? Probably no. They probably had the guys on set be like, how do we make the car glow? Well, look at that sign. That's green. Let's do that. There's probably a bunch of other ways to do this. But as a character goes, and as a human being goes, if I saw a glowing car, even with you in it, the last thing I'm going to do is run up and try to get into that car. I know if something's glowing, it probably means it's radioactive and it's probably bad for me.
But what if I didn't even say anything to you? What if we just locked eyes and then I extended my index finger and just beckoned to you to get in? Would that make you want to get in more versus you asking like, "Hey, Roger, why are you in that car and why is it glowing green?"
I would try to look from a distance, and then when I saw you holding a pistol, that's when I would run away.
This movie really goes off the rails in the third act. They're in a gunfight in a hospital, like a stairwell. You talked about like the couple of the CIA agents. They're eating sandwiches, saying, "I fucking love this job." As people, blow up into flames. Leila is upset with Otto for some reason for getting in the car, saying, "What about our relationship?" When literally a few scenes back, she was torturing him alongside the CIA. Like, of course, I'm gonna fucking try and get away from this crazy person. Like, this movie makes zero sense.
You're so completely wrong. I'm taking a half wipe off my score just because you reminded me of this ending. This chaos and this off the rails is the best part of the movie. So much of the movie is slow, but the gunfight in the stairwell, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. Wow. There's a gunfight. The funny part is over the loudspeakers before they start shooting, quiet in the stairwells, quiet in the stairwells, quiet in the stairwells. So this shit's funny. And Leila, she's like, what about a relationship? I'm thinking, okay, Otto's learned something. He's going to say, oh, but I'll see you when I come back. He goes, fuck that, and gets into the car. This is the best part of the movie. And I just knocked a half wipe off my score.
No way.
But so my question for you is, you now have found out that there are aliens. They're in the trunk of the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would that surprise you, or do you currently believe that to be true?
I believe that there are aliens that exist, definitely. And I believe that they're already here. I believe that they have sold their technology. I mean, listen, the UFOs have recently been declassified, right? The Navy came out and said that the videos are authentic, the ones that have leaked. We don't know what they are. I think that's bullshit. I do believe that they know exactly what they are. And I do believe that there are aliens that live among us now, or at least are in communication with world governments. You can't have the advancements in technology that we've had in a condensed short period of time without there being outside intervention. You know what I mean?
Okay, you're crazy.
You think I'm crazy? You think that after 3,000 years or no, 10,000 years of living in caves, in the last 100 years, we've sent people to the moon, we've developed iPhones, we have satellites. Like, you think that man just got smart?
I can give you proof. One thing, humans can do anything except for keep a secret. There's no fucking way that a spacecraft came down and you did not have evidence leak out. And evidence is not some grainy bullshit footage of an alien autopsy or some crackpot who says, yeah, I worked there, I saw what they did at Area 51. It would come out. Somebody credible.
It has come out. Even if I'm a credible person and come out and say that there are aliens, I'm immediately, the power of the media in every country around the world prevents the truth from getting out. The truth is out there, Big D.
You took a huge leap. I agree also that aliens exist, but you've taken it the step further that not only do they exist, but we have co-opted and taken their technology and sold it. And we've built our civilization on the backbone of alien tech. I would bet you we couldn't even conceive. We'd be like monkeys finding an iPhone. We wouldn't know what the fuck to do with it. I'll be honest with you.
I think aliens give us a little bit for what we hear me out. You ever watched Ancient Aliens? Have you ever been down to to see the Mayan ruins? Like, how are there, similar structures that exist in ancient man when there was no contact between ancient civilizations, yet they're building the same structures. They're doing paintings and carvings of these aliens on rocket ships. Are you telling me that you don't think that we are some sort of habitat for these aliens to come down and rule us?
So you're telling me that creative drawings on a wall, my daughter, who has never seen an astronaut, she draws things that look very similar to astronauts. Sure. If I put them on the wall and 1,000 years later somebody found them, they'd be like, oh shit, look, they predicted astronauts. These are simple drawings on the wall. Aliens, this is not Stargate. Come on. But aliens, I think, do exist. Okay. And one of my favorite movies that talks about it is Contact, where Ellie is going to make the first human contact with aliens. And she paraphrases some statement like, when she's asked about it, that the universe is a pretty big place, and if it's just us, it's a big waste of space. And you can just look at just do the math, Sure. There's 400 billion stars out there, just in our galaxy alone. If only 1 out of 1 million of those had planets, and just 1 out of 1 million of those had life, and just 1 out of 1 million of those had intelligent life, there would be literally millions of civilizations out there. So that's my take on it. It's just the math. It's just so much space. It's got to be. It's just numerically, there has to be life out there more advanced and less advanced than us. But I do not think they're wheeling and dealing and coming in and trading their technologies.
Oh, I disagree wholeheartedly. And I believe that they are paying people substantial amounts of money to keep their mouths shut. And I believe that, there's a whole society, secret society, Illuminati that is, has access to this. Because like Miller, who is this guy who works at a repo shop and burns trash in barrels and says things like thousands of people go missing each year in South America and UFOs are time machines. My grandfather, and I think we talked about this, I'm not sure if we have or not, but my Cuban grandfather, who was, by the way, chief of medicine at multiple hospitals throughout his time, when he was here on Earth, and also, had his own family practice, very educated person, highly believed in all these conspiracies that you hear about. He would pull me into the living room at the house throughout my childhood, before the Alex Joneses of the world, before this became, kind of mainstream and cool, before the X-Files. And he would tell me all these things that have become mainstream. He would tell me about the aliens were coming down and they were pulling the organs from cows to to make androids, to make organic androids. And that's how they were infiltrating human society, and how there was an Illuminati that ruled everything in these secret societies. And he would tell me these endless stories about these alien conspiracies. Now, some of them, again, when I started to hear them in the mainstream, I'm like, I've known that for years, right? But again, you talk about credibility. Not everyone is the guy, handling, the trash at a Repo Man. There are intelligent people that just happen to know the truth, Big D. And I happen to subscribe to some of those.
I think your grandfather was just fucking with you personally.
You think this was his?
He was just fucking punking you.
Well, one of the questions I had at the end of the movie, because there is this religious overture, especially when it comes to televangelism, corporate Christianity that the movie is trying to rail against. But then you have this character, Light, who is trying to give Otto this book on diometrics. This has to be saying something about Scientology, right? And I thought, well, is this movie about Scientology? Is it connected? Is Alex Cox somehow a Scientologist? Because Scientology, from what I understand, there's Thetans and aliens, and you believe in different levels and all that kind of stuff. And was it a way for just to get suburban punks off the street and into a religion started by a former science fiction author? And then I started diving a little bit. I went down like that Reddit rabbit hole. Well, did you know that Tom Cruise, probably one of the most famous Scientologists in Hollywood, he got connected to Scientology through Mimi Rogers in a secret ceremony. Do you know who his best man was? Emilio Estevez.
Oh, it's all coming together, Rod. Your grandfather was right. Your grandfather was right.
Emilio Estevez at the time was a fledgling church member, but he has since moved on. He is not a Scientologist anymore. But that got me thinking. But I think it's all about LA. I think that all is just a play on LA.
No, it's against everything that's establishment.
Right.
Established jobs, your parents, what your career will be, and religion. And I was not sure which way it was going to go. In the beginning, they're making fun of the parents and the televangelist. When the televangelist shows up, I was like, oh, fuck. Were they like Miller? Are they going to get on the ship and be taken up into the stars? Is this something? Are they going to go to the planet Colo? No. So when they get struck by lightning and they get pushed away, I was like, yes, this is just making fun of the fact that we as humans think we have everything figured out. And the fact that we know fucking nothing. Because, nothing is what it seems, Roger. Nothing is what it looks like.
Well, now's the time of the podcast. So we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, zero wipe movie is absolutely perfect. A 5 wiper is like painting a 1964 Chevy Malibu completely green, and when you open up the trunk, you're instantly vaporized. I wonder if Quentin Tarantino got the idea for the briefcase from this movie.
You think?
Well, how many wipes do you give Repo Man Big D?
So, like I said, I'm going to take a half wipe off. I was going to go 3.5, but I'm going to go 3. I'm going 3 because the insanity that the end of that scene in the hospital and everything, it's crazy. But I understand why people like this. I think Repo Man, it is that quintessential cult film. It is low budget. It looks low budget. It feels low budget. But it has some high concepts that tear down the things about the 80s and what the consumer culture was, Reaganism, the fears of nuclear war, growing up in a suburban house with your parents. And it kind of brought up that whole death of the inner city, and it's grimy. Nothing really adds up to much, but I think that's what they were going for, Repo Man is just an 80s kind of wild trip through the dirty streets of LA's wasteland with Otto as our unwitting, clueless guide. And if you view it just as that, it's average, a little worse than average. It's nothing special, but I think 3 is fair for what it is.
Well, let me start off by stating I understand this movie is beloved by a lot of people in a certain demographic. Again, we talked about how there's an entire subculture or counterculture that grew up in and around the punk scene that love this movie. There are fan sites as well as Repo Man nights at bars, clubs, like those goth industrial crowds that adore Blade Runner. That being said, I totally understand how or why movie executives at Universal wouldn't know what to do with this movie, especially if you're trying to appeal to like a mainstream audience, make this a wide release. Bob Remy at Universal was the one who originally greenlit the picture, but unfortunately for Cox and his company, the regime was replaced partway through production, and the new guard didn't know what to do. They had less confidence in the film, and they basically sabotaged its initial release. Like they tried to bury it. However, Repo Man struck such a chord, in that subculture, made a lot of money for an independent distributor, which led to Alex Cox being able to make other films. He made Sid and Nancy, and then he did Straight to Hell. Both, I guess, again, are extremely revered. And all those films are due as a result from this movie's success with that niche audience. Now, personally, this is not my cup of tea. I don't particularly enjoy this movie. However, I think the concepts and plot are interesting, but the execution feels like a highly produced student film. It feels like your final project that you would do at UCLA Filmcast. The acting isn't great. The pacing is pretty poor, and the tone of the film is all over the place. That being said, it's going for something, but they just were limited by the resources that they had and the inexperience in making movies. So it's not that. I mean, I wouldn't recommend. I would recommend watching it one time. I'd recommend watching it one time just to see it. But it's 3.5, so we're not too far off.
No, so I talked about Scott. How Scott said, he liked the punk music because he could play it, right?
Right.
This is a movie that feels like Scott could have made it. It is the punk rock version of a movie. It doesn't seem like everybody knew what they were doing. The special effect guy went and spent 10 times the amount of money he needed to make the car glow.
Right.
This was people just saying, hey, I could be a fucking grip. What's a grip do? Where's the sound guy? Okay, let's do it, man. And it came out, and it's like a fucking rough punk album.
Yeah.
It's an expression of art by less skilled people.
Right.
But that's what it's supposed to do.
There's a charm about this movie is what you're saying. And I think you're right. I felt the charm come through. Like, again, if you and I tried to make a movie, it'd be worse than this, but there would be similarities because we wouldn't know what we were doing. It'd be pretty close. Yeah. Well, if we were to add up our scores 3 and 3.5 and then divide by 2, that gives you our overall Shat score, which is what, Big D?
Raj, that brings it to a 3.25 wipe score. And that ties it in the 118 spot with a movie that is very similar to this, Videodrome. So I think it's paired up pretty well.
I think the two are connected. I think in the same subcultures, I was reading somewhere that Videodrome and Repo Man are both beloved by the same individuals, or like there's a lot of similarities, I guess, in the way that they filmed or the reactions from the studios. So yeah, again, this makes sense. At least we're consistent.
Yeah.
The system works, right?
It's surprising how it comes out.
Well, we talked about, again, if you don't like our Shat scores and you want to defend this movie, you think it should have a higher ranking, you can call in to our voicemail line, which is 914-719-SHAT, or you can write in. Our email address is hosts@shatthemovies.com. Just put in your messages, the Dropbox, and then we'll take the best ones. We ended the shout outs, so there's no more shout outs. But again, keep giving your iTunes reviews. That really helps the podcast grow. And Big D, what movie are we doing next week?
So there are certain things in this world and life that you think just possibly could never happen. Sure. Never happen. Like the U.S. winning a World Cup. Never happen.
How dare you?
Never happen.
How dare you?
The aliens sell technology to the human race. Never happened.
They sold it first to the Brazilians, and that's why they're so good at soccer.
Okay. So next week, we are having a special guest. I'm not going to say who it is. It is a very special guest. It should make people happy. It is a special guest that, much like the U.S. winning the World Cup, I said, this could never happen, but maybe one day it could. So this was a commission that was sent in by Mike from Quincy, and it is a film that tells the tale of Matilda, who is only 12 years old, but is already very familiar with the dark side of life. Her abusive father stores drugs for corrupt police officers, and her mother neglects her. Leon, who lives down the hall, tends to his houseplants and works as a hitman for mobster Tony. When her family is murdered by crooked DEA agent Stansfield, Matilda joins forces with the reluctant Leon to learn his deadly trade and avenge her family's death. It was released in November of 1994 by director Luc Besson. It's a great movie. It's a great movie, and I think everybody will be excited to hear the special guest.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Scott O, for your commission of Repo Man. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. You can follow the handle at Shat the Movies. Again, the email address is hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey so we can sell it to advertisers. You can buy our merchandise. I think we're going to have a couple new designs up there. Or by commissioning your own movie. You can find all the information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. You can find all the information on the website, shatontv.com.
And also, people out there, if you don't have the money, we know we're in the middle of a pandemic and a lot of people are out of work, and you want to help the podcast, we're like Amway. We're like a pyramid scheme. If one person gets two of their
friends, who
invented
the pyramids?
Yes. If you get two of your friends to listen, and then they get two of their friends to listen, that takes care of it. So we don't need donations as much as we need your love. If you tell two friends, that would be great, and it would help us out probably almost as much as a commission.
Yeah, share.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything to share.
Nope.
We're everywhere. Fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify. We're not going like Joe Rogan. We're not going to go exclusive. We also have a YouTube channel. We have a Twitch channel that you can give a passive. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free to our channel and never miss any of the live content that we put out there. I do a show every Tuesday called The Florida Man, where you can check me out. We take the best headlines from Florida and review them, kind of like what we do here at Shat the Movies. We've got two new hosts, Benny Buffett and Mr. C. Gene does a video game show where he plays with Ashley.
That was awful. I did a round.
You did a round with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
he got me this game called Hold Fast. So it was like it was like the French Revolution. So I was running around with a musket. Yeah. Trying to shoot. It was my computer was laggy and I was terrible. I've never done a computer keyboard game. It was the hardest 15 minutes of my life. I'm like, Gene, where are you? I can't see anything. Oh shit, the guy next to me died. Bayonets. Where am I going? Oh, I'm dead.
He tried to we did one where we played Warzone and I just ran around with a shield for 50 minutes.
It got so bad that I switched to the role of violinist. So my job was to run on the battlefield and play the violin to motivate the troops.
Well, I think that show is called Squad Goals. I don't know what day it debuts. It's on the calendar. And then Friday is Shappy Hour, where they just take your questions and all that kind of stuff. So that's on the Twitch channel. And I believe they are reposting those previous episodes on the YouTube channel. So check that out. Thanks, Big D, on behalf of my co-host Big D and all the Shat family. I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Good night and good luck.
Let's talk business. This guy comes to town every Tuesday. Are you free Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm free Tuesday.
You can't stop what you can't see.
This guy came from the outside. He was a pro. He was fast.
In the art of the kill, Leon was the master.
Somebody's coming up. Somebody's serious.
He never missed a hit. He never got caught.
You're indestructible. Bullets slide off you. You play with them.
And above all else, he never had a reason to care. Until now.
I like these calm little moments before the storm.
My family was shot down by DEA officers.
3 kids here. One of them is missing. Find her.
Please open the door. Please.
From the director of La Femme Nikita.
If you don't help me, I'll die tonight. I can feel it.
An innocent girl with no one else to turn to.
What exactly do you do for a living?
Cleaner.
You mean you're a hitman? Cool.
A perfect assassin.
I need you to help me, Leon. I want to get those dirtbags who killed my brother.
With someone to finally believe in.
Change ain't good. Remember that, Leon.
I will.
They're about to come face to face with a cop who's crossed the line.
Bring me everyone. What do you mean, everyone?